Oh, yes. Also, we are recording the meeting, just to
Mm.
let you know. So if you want to leave at any point, but we just wanted to notify you. But as I was saying, Annika and I will be alternating in asking questions. And this is just going to be a very informal type of conversation. But thank you so much for being here to our guest speakers. Today, we're going to be talking about chronic illnesses and their impact on mental health. Before we get started, we like to do a quick access check. So we ask that everyone, before they speak, they provide a verbal image description. So I would say I'm Prabnor, I'm a South Asian woman. I have dark hair, black hair, and I'm wearing a dark brown shirt. And Annika, if you want to give your little introduction as well.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Annika. I am a white woman with dark brown hair. Today, I'm wearing a green shirt with a gray cardigan. And I think that's about it. But it's great to be here today with all of you.
Awesome. We also have captions if you need them. You can turn them on in the bottom panel by clicking the CC button on the bottom in Zoom. And then if you have any other accommodation needs, definitely feel free to put them in the chat or you can message Sarah privately. We will do our best to accommodate them as well. So before we dive in, just a little background. What exactly is Invisible Illness Awareness Network? So we're a 501c3 nonprofit that's dedicated to raising awareness for invisible illnesses, chronic illnesses, and disabilities. And also another main aim of the organization is to support students at various universities to start affiliate organizations to really become leaders and educate peers and foster inclusive environments for patients and families when it comes to invisible illnesses and chronic illnesses. And then more specifically, what is the Invisibly Aware Series? So that's what we're at today. So we have 2 virtual meetings a month on invisible illness topics. So our first meeting is a presentation on the topic. We had our first one earlier this month. And then our second meeting is a guest speaker panel, which is where we're at tonight. And we have our wonderful guest speakers here who are going to share their lived experiences or professional expertise on the topic. So sometimes we have people who live with chronic illnesses. We also have caretakers. And then we also sometimes have providers, medical professionals who can really provide professional expertise on treating chronic illnesses. And just a quick slide about our social media. So we have an Instagram for the Invisible Illness Awareness Network, as well as one for the Invisibly Aware series. So those are linked right there. We also have a YouTube and a website, and just a place where you can find all of this information in one place if you just scan the QR code to find the link tree. And this will also include a sign up for our newsletter so you can stay up to date with what's going on. Also, we always like to start our meeting with the disclaimer that we are not offering medical advice. If you are concerned about any of these issues, we ask that you please do talk to a medical professional. And something we also like to really keep in mind is no 2 people with the same condition have the same experience with it. And we really want to respect everyone's individual lived experiences. And finally, we're not experts on these topics, but our guest speakers are definitely experts on their personal experiences with these conditions. And if you have any questions at all, at any point, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to have a dedicated time at the end of our presentation to ask our guest speakers questions. And we are all going to do our best to answer to the best of our knowledge. And I'll hand it off to Annika.
Yes, we just wanted to go over some of the main takeaways that we had from our earlier presentation from a couple weeks ago regarding mental health and chronic illnesses. So to start off with our takeaways, a reminder for everyone, mental illnesses are just as important as physical illnesses, and they can often go hand in hand. Chronic illnesses can lead to grief, identity shifts, anxiety, depression, and other mental health struggles due to pain, uncertainty, and lifestyle changes. And mental health conditions can cause physical symptoms, just as physical symptoms can cause mental health conditions. Another important point that we focus on throughout our entire year-long meetings is that medical trauma and PTSD are real. And sometimes they're not taken as seriously as those who experience them need them to be. And that those with chronic illnesses, many people with chronic illnesses, experience dismissal, delayed diagnoses, misdiagnoses, and neglect in healthcare settings. Medical PTSD can develop after negative healthcare experiences. And symptoms can include anxiety about medical visits, panic attacks, avoiding healthcare, and distress when talking about health. And with that, I would like to introduce our guest speakers for tonight. We have three guest speakers with us, and thank you guys all for being here. We have Sarah Pennington, Monica Lynne, and Luna Piccioni. I hope I pronounced all of those correctly. Okay, good. So thank you guys very seriously for being here. And we are going to have a series of questions that we're going to ask all of you. However, if anyone else has questions throughout tonight's forum, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will also have a dedicated time at the end to specifically answer questions from those in the audience in the chat. So if you just be a little patient, we will absolutely get to them.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, as Annika said, to our guest speakers for being here. Before we get started on our question list, we just ask if each speaker can quickly introduce themselves. For accessibility, as we mentioned, please provide a visual description of yourself. And you can give a brief background on yourself, a fun fact or something, anything you want to include. And we also recommend that you share your pronouns as well.
Okay, my name is Monica Lynne. She, her. I am a Latina, and I'm wearing a mustard yellow shirt and some glasses of the same color. I'm a digital nomad, so I travel a lot, and with a chronic condition, it's pretty interesting because managing it is a full-time job. So yeah, I ask myself instead of how or pardon, instead of telling myself I can't do something, I ask myself, how do I make it happen anyway? And so that's my big mission in life is to figure out solutions to what it seems that I can't do yet.
My name is Luna Piccioni. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white Hispanic with brown hair and glasses. Currently a student at UIUC studying psychology with a pre-med track. And I hope to eventually become a doctor if my disability allows it. Otherwise, hopefully somewhere in the healthcare field. Yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, she, her pronouns. I'm a bald white woman wearing a red sweater and red earrings. I am a filmmaker. I graduated in 2022 from the Savannah College of Art and Design with a BFA in film and television and a minor in business management and entrepreneurship. I'm also very heavily involved with pageantry, and I'm the reigning international United Miss Pennsylvania. And my current goal really is focusing on accessibility in both the film world as well as the pageant world and making those spaces in the entertainment industry in general more accessible and welcoming to people like us who have disabilities.
I would also like to add one thing. I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention. I am also starting an affiliate for Invisible Illness here at the University of Illinois. So that's one last thing. Sorry.
No apologies needed. Thank you guys all for introducing yourselves. This is quite a panel, and I'm already impressed with all of you. So with that, I think we'll get started. Our first question is just kind of sort of a general overview. If you'd be willing to share your experience living with invisible illnesses, chronic illnesses, and disability, and what it impacts your life the most, just in brief. And I think we've already figured this out, but feel free to just chime in as you please.
Well, I've had multiple sclerosis for about 20 years now. I was diagnosed at 16, and I've had to deal with a lot of different phases of this illness. Um, at first, it was much more invisible than it is now. And so the way that I communicate in the world has changed a little. Um, it's challenging because the world just isn't designed for us. It sometimes or oftentimes I feel like I'm like not disabled enough, and I feel like an invader sometimes in people who are physically very apparently have the disability, and then to people who are don't have a disability. It's like I don't know. I'm like in an in between. It's weird. It's frustrating on a day-to-day basis, especially because I'm still you know, in a 20-year span, still getting to know my body. Changes all the time.
I think I can relate a lot to that, feeling like the in-between aspect of everything. I was diagnosed with some conditions before 2024, but they weren't necessarily disabling at that time, I think, in my own opinion. I got COVID in January 2024. That was the first time I got COVID, and it completely wrecked my life, to be completely honest. I have so many diagnoses now. I have so many medications I take every day. A lot of like the hobbies and stuff that I used to be able to do, I can't do anymore. And the best way I can sum it up without going on a tangent is that it feels like I died when I got COVID and I'm living the body and experiencing everything that I'm losing, if that makes sense. So that's how I feel currently. um, yeah, that's me.
So my journey is kind of a bit different in that my diagnoses all started out with mental health related diagnoses as opposed to physical diagnoses. Not because I wasn't experiencing, looking back, there are things I was like, oh, this is that I had all of these things still, just nobody caught them. But I was getting treatment for my mental health conditions well before I was getting any kind of like specific treatment for when we ended up finding out was POTS, and that was kind of a very long-term thing that nobody put the pieces together for. And so it was an interesting journey because I was 16 when I was placed in a not placed. I voluntarily decided it was the best to go to a residential treatment program at a psychiatric hospital. And so I had worked very hard up until that point to get to a point where I was okay and able to function. And then when I got the POTS diagnosis, it was a whole shift in my perspective because up until that point, I thought, oh, I just have to kind of fight my mind or fight my thoughts. And that was the only thing that I had to deal with. And then when you throw in the physical element, I was like, I can't fight my body. It was a whole perspective shift about I had to be more intentional and cautious and aware of what I was doing and how I was interacting with my environment. And so that was kind of a journey about from what I used to know to what I got to be now. It was a very interesting experience, but it also I think set me up pretty well because I had that mental health background, and so it was a bit easier to deal with. Not fully easier, but it did help a little bit to know that like I got through something once. Let's try it again and see how it goes.
I actually can relate a little bit to that. I had really severe anxiety, which I know is it's a little different from other mental illnesses, but in seventh grade, I had to switch to a new school. It was a high school, and I was having the most severe anxiety I've ever had in my life. Of course, that comes with changes and whatnot, but I've always been a pretty anxious kid. And I think there is a huge tie with POTS and anxiety. Not saying that that's your experience personally, but I've looked it up a couple of times for some research projects, and it's the POTS anxiety diagnosis is very correlated. Um, but the issue is that a lot of doctors see it as just anxiety. They don't see the anxiety as a symptom. And oftentimes they fail to recognize that heart rate and blood pressure drops and all of those physical symptoms can cause the anxiety. And those things are very much intertwined. And so I understand like the having to fight your mind at that time. Like for me, it was really hard because it was like it it was like the physical would happen and then the mental would happen. So it was like, how can I fight both at the same time? Like it was really hard. And I did a lot of work to try to fix the mental. And I think it's helped a lot now that I have medication for POTS. But that just is one example of how mental health and physical illness tie together. So yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
pretty
was.
sure all of my pardon me.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure all of my relapses have been triggered by stress for sure. I don't know about all. Maybe I'm speaking in hyperbole. Forgive me, but definitely it's a huge contributor to when MS slaps me in the face. Stress is like right there.
I was just gonna say, I feel like all three of you have really highlighted how inextricably linked mental health is with chronic illness, and we're definitely going to get into that more when we're talking about the diagnosis process and everything. But we really appreciate you kind of giving that introduction to your experiences. More specifically, I guess our next question is focused about your journey to getting diagnosed and what that was really like. How long did it really take you to seek help after noticing symptoms? And I guess since our focus really today is on mental health, what was really your emotional reaction to receiving a diagnosis? What did that look like for in processing that for you?
Well, when I was diagnosed, it wasn't the first time I had felt symptoms. I had felt symptoms early on, like as if my finger was falling asleep. I had numbness when I was in school. I remember telling my mom on the school bus that I had felt that on the school bus, and she kind of she just dismissed it as if, you know, it's just typical, right? But it never went away, and then I kind of forgot about it after it did fizzle out. But it wasn't until I was 16 years later that I went blind. I had optic neuritis from one eye, so I saw all white. And then I knew something was wrong. I tell my mom. My mom takes me to the hospital, a series of tests and steroids that took a few months, maybe 6 months, for me to finally figure out that it was MS, relapsing remitting MS at the time. And so, sorry, forgive me. It's just I don't really talk about it, you know, in these settings. So thank you. um, and then I was young, and we didn't have Zoom back then, or Instagram, or any of these channels. This was like 2005, and it was lonely because it's only now in my almost 40s that I get to talk about it in settings with other people like you. And back then, I kind of just dealt with it on my own. And I did get to go to summer camp with other kids later that had MS, and that was wonderful. But it was really lonely for like 2 decades. Almost. It's only been up until recently, after I was re-diagnosed with the next phase of MS called secondary progressive MS. So now it looks a little different. Now it's not just fatigue and more invisible symptoms. Now I have a little bit of a lag on my right leg. My disability has progressed a little, but not on a lot of days. You can't really. It's not so pervasive, if you will. And now I have a network, and now I have support. And so things have changed, and they look a lot differently than when I was first diagnosed, for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you're able to be here and talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with my experience, I think there's always I feel like looking back, there was always issues ever since like I was a kid that were related to POTS symptoms, which yeah, I don't know. But going forward, I knew that there was something going on in seventh grade. That's when things really started gaining traction with the stress and everything. My heart rate was not as bad back then. I mean, like it was still POTS diagnosis, like 30 points up type thing, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. And it took me until freshman year of college, second semester, for me to get diagnosed fully. Before that, junior year of high school, I was put on certain medications with my cardiologist. He said that it seems like you have POTS, so let's give you this. And then that didn't work. So then he was like, okay, it seems like you have POTS, so let's give you this. And that first cardiologist, he was not the greatest. He gave me medication that did not help my symptoms at all. When I told him this, he took me off of it, but then when I went back to him to get my documentation for my college accommodations, he gave me the same medication again. So it took a bit of questioning for that. And that was pretty much all of that. And then luckily my mom's a dentist, so she has lots of patients, and she had a patient whose daughter has EDS. So she gave me a referral to go to this doctor who specializes in hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That was a 6-hour appointment, and I got the diagnosis right then and there. And my life has changed so much since I got that doctor. I didn't even expect to get an EDS diagnosis. I was going into the appointment thinking she was just going to help my POTS, and that was it. But yeah, I got my diagnosis for that, and eventually got my diagnosis for MCAS with the allergist and some other diagnoses with this doctor. But my life has truly changed since I have got this doctor. It's really the medical trauma of not being believed. Every pediatric doctor I had thought it was just anxiety and was telling me that I had to get a therapist and all these things. To go from that from a very young age, I cry in doctors' offices every single time now. Like there was this time where I was having really bad fatigue, and I told her, I was like, I promise you it's not depression, and I was gonna go on a ramble, but she immediately stopped me and she was like, honey, I know it's not depression. You have so many chronic fatigue issues or things that could cause that, like physical, that it's not surprising that you're having this. So let's fix it, you know? And I immediately just bawled my eyes out. Like I didn't have to explain anything. She already knew she was doing her job. So I think that that's really important. And ever since getting diagnosed, I feel more comfortable being in communities with my physical illness and especially like long COVID. But that's also another sad part is that even though diagnoses are great and they help you get the help you need, doctors' offices aren't always really accessible to some disabled people who are immunocompromised to COVID. A lot of doctors aren't masking now, and I have lost 3 friends in my chronic illness and long COVID support group to medical malpractice and getting long COVID again or COVID again, like repeat infections from hospitals. So it's really hard. The diagnoses help, but there's still long ways to go for that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said that I found the most impactful is the doctor is doing their job. And I find it very surprising how frequent it feels like that's not the case, which is absolutely disappointing. But it, definitely you're not alone in feeling that way. And when you find that unicorn, it's great. I think everything about my journey is always just a little bit kind of off the beaten path of what a lot of people experience. And for this specifically, for getting the POTS diagnosis, honestly, it all goes back to my mom. I wouldn't have gotten it if she had not put the puzzle pieces together, because the doctors certainly weren't. And I think, if memory serves me right, one of the first things that really was like, something is wrong, was I said something about, oh yeah, hold on, give me a minute. I stood up and I can't see. And for me, like, I'll stand up and my vision will go completely black and I can't see for like 30 seconds. And then it comes back and I can move around. And I said that, and it was just like the first time I realized, oh, that's not normal. Was when she was like, "What do you mean?" So she looked into it, and I guess she went down the rabbit hole and she found POTS, and she was like, "Oh my goodness! Like, these are all the symptoms you've been telling me years and years and years of, like, these little things that have happened all like throughout the years that we brought up to the doctors, but it was either they brushed me off or it was the, like, I don't know what to do with that because, okay, that's happening." And so um, we ended up buying a heart monitor, one from like Amazon or something, and we kind of did our own like tilt table test. I don't recommend this, but this is just what happened. Um, and it was very clear when my heart rate like shot up super high, and she's like, oh, okay, like this might actually be it. So we went to the doctor with our proposal of like, here we think it's POTS, this is why we think it's POTS, this is all of the things that have happened over the years that make us think this is POTS. And the doctor's like, okay. So she ordered the 24-hour like Holter monitor, the official one, and she looked at the results and she's like, okay, this does indicate you have POTS. Like, I'm not going to diagnose this, not a cardiologist, but she sent me to the Cleveland Clinic, and so 6 months later after that, I was at the Cleveland Clinic for the POTS clinic, and they proved what we had suspected was the situation. But it is kind of frustrating looking back, looking all the times where I said something was wrong or said this is weird or said I have this issue, and it was either like they didn't have the knowledge, and I don't blame people for not having the knowledge, but didn't have the knowledge diagnosis, or they didn't care enough to diagnose it, which also happened. And so I'm grateful that I was able to have the support system that was able to put the pieces together, but it also breaks my heart for all the people who don't have that opportunity to be able to put it together. So that's my journey to getting my diagnosis, at least my POTS diagnosis. There's a bunch of other stuff, but we don't need to go down that hill.
I want to add one more thing as well. I think both of you guys have talked about your mom and how they've helped you go through that journey. I think it's unfair if I don't mention my mom because I wouldn't be here without her. To an extent, like it was really hard in the beginning when all these doctors were telling her that I had anxiety. She immediately believed it, which is fine. That's what most people are gonna do. And it was a really hard struggle in the beginning. They were recommending things that weren't really helping, like taking my phone away or drinking more water or like making sure she sleeps at like 7 p.m. Like all these different things that like were not going to help the situation at all. And it was really hard for her to see that because, you know, she gets recommendations from doctors, she's going to follow it. But eventually, and she didn't believe I had anxiety either. She just thought like everyone has it, like all these things. And it wasn't until a 504 meeting with, you know, teachers and whatnot that she just cried her eyes out. She was just crying. And my mom never cries. So it was like, it made me cry. And like, even thinking about it is making me tear up. But I think that hit her after her hearing me talk about my anxiety, that she understood it a lot better. And, she knew that something was wrong. And that's why we went to the cardiologist, and that's how I was able to get the POTS diagnosis, but she did not quit. And if it wasn't for her, I would not have all these other diagnoses and all this help and treatment and medications, because she knew something was deeply wrong. Like she knew in her heart that there was something wrong. And so she was the one who was looking. She was like, oh, this phrenic nerve damage, that sounds like why you have so many hiccups all the time. And then it was like, oh, well, maybe there's like the EDS. And that's how she found out. Like I was already getting some content on my like TikTok and whatnot about EDS, but I didn't personally believe I had it. I was just kind of like, yeah, these symptoms, I have them, but they're not really that bad right now. So I don't think I have it. But yeah, if it wasn't for her, I would not have all these appointments with these really great doctors that she finds. I have pretty bad task paralysis, so I would never have scheduled the appointment without her. And it's still a struggle. It's honestly still a struggle for her to understand that I am disabled. And I can understand that, like, if I had my own daughter, that would be hard to accept. But you know, I accept it, and she's getting there. And she's amazing. She bought a transit wheelchair for our New York trip. I was gonna be proud and not use it, and I was gonna be like, no, I don't need it, I'll be fine. But it turned out I really needed it. So, and she wheeled me around for her birthday, which I really feel guilty about, but she did it and she was happy about it. She didn't complain. And you know, anything I need, she'll financially support me, which is just, it's great. So love you, Mom.
Shout out to moms.
Yes, shout out to moms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a shame that we're not doing this around Mother's Day, but I'm absolutely delighted that this seems to be a mom shout out session. Yeah, I think thank you all for those answers. You've all really emphasized how much of an emotional journey getting to a diagnosis can be, and how that's charged on both good and bad fronts. So thank you. For our next question, how has your day-to-day life changed since your symptoms started or since you got your diagnosis? And what challenges do you face in your daily life, specifically emotional, for today's topic? And has that shaped the way that you view yourself or the world?
I can jump in on this first. So the first thing that I really realized is I need to actually bring water with me and not just drink occasionally. I was very bad about that prior to being diagnosed with POTS, but like one of the first things I tell you is eat salt, drink water, like electrolytes. It's like top 3 things you hear about POTS, and compression socks, of course. But I I think one of the things that was the hardest part about it from a like day-to-day shift was realizing that I can't just endlessly push my body to the extent that my brain sometimes wants it to, which can be very frustrating. I've always been someone who will dream big and I will shoot for the stars. And so if I'm having one of those days where I'm want to dream big, but my body is dreaming about laying in bed, and that's kind of the extent of what my body wants to do, it can be very difficult. And so it's been hard sometimes when I have to accept that what I had planned is just not happening that day because my body doesn't agree with me. And so that has definitely led to some points where I've had a little bit more of a pessimistic attitude than I would want. But it's also helped me, having the experience like a few years under my belt with this diagnosis. I think I was diagnosed in 2018, so 7 years into it at this point. I am gotten to understanding my limits, but understanding my limits has enabled me to be much more realistic, so I'm not setting myself up for failure by putting myself in situations I'm not going to be able to achieve. And of course, there's always, unexpected days where you have flare-ups or you have those situations where you don't expect not to feel okay, or you don't expect not to be able to do something, even though, things were going right otherwise. But having that background of saying, okay, generally speaking, I can do X, but I can't do Y, or if I do Y, I need to take X amount of rest days, or things like that, is put me in a much better situation. And so, if there is anyone who is dealing with a new diagnosis, that's kind of one tip that I have, or one piece of advice or hope, if you will, is that, you know, you start to get a hang of it. It can be very overwhelming, especially when you first get that diagnosis of, okay, they're getting all this information and all these tips and tricks, and you're looking up things, and you're like, this feels very overwhelming. But once you get used to it and you settle into that knowledge and that understanding, you can also start preparing better, which sets you up for success.
I totally relate to that. I'm constantly now in my second diagnosis. So like I'm splitting my timeline, right? First diagnosis, second diagnosis. After my first diagnosis, I ignored it because I could, because it was relapsing, remitting. So when I had a relapse every 6 months, and then I could ignore it for the rest of the year. I went to the hospital twice a year, and then I didn't have to think about it. So then fast forward 15 years later, I get this new diagnosis, and all of a sudden I'm measuring my output just like you described. It's like I have to be very aware of what I do and not overdoing anything, and what did I eat, and is that going to affect me later, and I can't go out on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, so I have to pick one day to go out and then rest the rest. So it's like I'm constantly measuring my output now, and that's been the biggest change between both phases of this illness for me.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, I agree with both of you guys. I feel the same exact way. Coming from like a college student perspective, it is a lot harder, especially pre-med. I have so many things that I need to fill my resume with. Obviously I have my classes I have to do, but then I have so many extracurriculars, and I love doing them. And it's just like, I have a rule for myself where I cannot leave the house more than 3 times. And I know that that seems like a lot for most people, but luckily being on campus, leaving the house could mean like a 5-minute walk somewhere else. Sorry about that noise. It could be a 5-minute walk, walking somewhere else, and then staying there for a couple hours, and then, so yeah, it's not as like big of a task. Thankfully, living in a walkable area. Other than that, like, it is hard because I have to do so many things to hopefully become a great medical school applicant. And it's just like I feel so behind with all my peers. And especially with this like physical mobility thing, it's just like it's really hard. Even walking 5 minutes, like I mentioned earlier, even that can be a task for me. And luckily, I do have physical therapy here. My university gives it for free, so I'm very privileged to have that, and I know it is really great. And it's a wonderful community there, so I really enjoy that. And that has helped me feel a bit more positive. And I would like to say, I know this is more about like the challenging aspects, but I would like also to be a little bit optimistic and that disability has changed my identity for better or for worse. But in the better aspects, I feel a bit more accepted with the people that I surround myself with. And being sick, I know that the friends I have are true friends, because if they're able to accept that I have to decline plans, if they're able to accept that I can't always hang out, if they're able to even bring me food, I am so grateful. I know that they're true to me, you know. And addition to that, I mask everywhere I go. I do not want to get COVID again. And I have found a great challenge to match my outfits to my mask. And I think that that has helped change my identity with how I feel about fashion. In addition to that, abdominal compressions, corsets, compression socks, that's very great for POTS and for my EDS rib dislocation stuff. And so that has also been part of like my identity shift. Like I feel more expressive in the way I look, and I try to help my disability through that. So that's what I like to say about that. Obviously, it's not great to. Sometimes I feel embarrassed to have my mobility aids with me, but I try to feel confident, and I think that has helped my mental health just a little bit. So that's a
I
positive.
totally relate to you in
Yeah.
that too, because I've had a huge identity shift. Okay, in college, I had already been diagnosed. I was a dancer. I was studying theater, and so I relate to you, creative, Sarah, and dealing with, you know, and I did it in isolation, dealing with everything. I didn't have resources, but I wasn't looking for resources. I wasn't looking for support because it was like my secret, you know. I wanted to be known as the actor, the dancer, the creative, and not the poor little sick girl. So I hid in my shame for a really long time, and so my identity has shifted specifically because of my my mobility aid, to your point, Luna. So like I had to adopt this new fashion statement, which is what I told myself that it was, my cane. So now I have a cane to match all of my outfits, and I've like redefined what that means. I've redefined the brand of the mobility aid to avoid the idea that it's a symbol for what's holding me back. Instead, it's a symbol for everything that I can do now. Yeah.
I actually want to add to that. I saw this girl at a house show, and she was masking and also had a cane. And I immediately went up to her. I was so excited to talk. And not that it's a bad thing at all, but she told me that she actually did not need the cane and that it was a fashion statement. And I actually love that so much, because the more people who, you know, use canes for fashion, the more it's accepted. There are some really beautiful canes out there. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. But also one thing I wanted to add that's a little off topic, but still on the challenges. I think most people don't realize that even resting can be harsh on the body for some people with disability. Like being a student, I know that I have to study, and so this is my desk where I sit. But even sitting here for like an hour, I can get really bad rib pain. And so that's something that I have to like accommodate for. Luckily, they're like corset and compression and all that can help. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting. Like a lot of people think, oh, like resting in bed can help like your pain, and sometimes it makes it worse. So it's always like a balance, like a balancing act of like walking, sitting, laying down, drinking water, eating food. All of those can like decrease my energy, but then also sometimes help. So it's like it's a balancing act. So I mean that's the challenge, I would say. But the positives are still great to look at. You know, because we can't really always focus on the negative as much as it is so glaring, you know. So yeah.
I think that's a interesting point about the being seated or like resting and things like that, because one of my accommodations when I was in college that I requested was to have a chair with a back. And in art school, a lot of times you're sitting at stools. And I really quickly found out that is horrible for POTS. No way. I rely so much on when I can lean back, I can put my legs up. And so it worked out interestingly in my advantage, because you get these very uncomfortable stools, and then they would reel in this like really cushy like big office chair for me. And so I know people were probably jealous, but I needed it. So it was nice to be able to have identified that need too, because it's not something you innately think of. Like when people ask you accommodations, you don't immediately go to like cushy chair with a back, but oh my goodness, it made such a world of a difference.
Yeah, I feel for you with that. I'm not like an artist specifically in college now. Like I do my own self stuff, but yeah, I have chemistry labs, and I did not know that they don't have chairs there. So I do have my own stool. I really wish it was a chair, but a stool I can deal with, and I think some people are a little jealous because the lab is 4 hours long, and yeah, so and everyone has to stand for that long. So I do feel a little bad, but I need it, so it helps out a lot with that. So yeah. And
Big
also I
time.
wanted to mention, oops, sorry.
Yeah, tell me,
I
tell
was
me, tell
going to talk to you actually. I am also a dancer, so I understand you're like creative. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. But yeah, like not wanting to like I'm on the exec board, so I try really hard not to talk about my health, and I try really hard to push myself to get there. And it is like a balancing act for like trying to hide my identity, but also like needing to explain it a little bit. I don't want to feel like incompetent in my ability to lead as a creative. So yeah, that's also one thing I wanted to add, and you can talk now.
me. No, I was gonna say too, to your point about resting. Um, I was called out by my editor just recently because I write for Bezzy. It's it's a platform by Healthline Media, and they feature, like different lifestyles, or pardon, different diagnoses and different life experiences, depend anyway. So I write medically reviewed article for this platform. Anyways, I was writing about how to like have accessible tools in your home, and then I was discussing how I'm a remote worker and I'm constantly changing environments, and I have to, figure out what's comfortable for me. And I was talking about like sitting on a sofa and like making it comfortable on a sofa. And my editor called me out so quick. She's like, that is terrible advice. We're not going to print that. You need an ergonomic chair like now. And since then, it's changed my life. I don't know how I'm going to deal without it in other people's houses, in the other accommodations I stay at, wherever. Because now that I've gotten an ergonomic chair, I can't go back. It really makes the world of a difference sitting down the right way.
That's really funny. I'm glad that you mentioned it though. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that you all really did a great job of kind of emphasizing how much of that mental load that really comes with getting the diagnosis, but also experiencing the day-to-day symptoms. What you all said really about having to, I don't remember exactly who said it, but the account for the output, and really almost like manage the different times, and like how much of energy you're really, that's, we've talked about the spoon theory a lot
Right.
when we're here. And so that really reminded me of that, and just how much mentally taxing doing that kind of working out in your mind about how much you can account for at different types of your day. And then also something that really resonated with me was kind of this ever-changing like knowledge about your own identity and what that means to you. And that was really powerful for me to hear. So thank you. I know we are encroaching on 9 o'clock. So we're going to skip a few questions. Our next question is specifically about more institutional systems. So we're kind of wondering, what challenges have you faced within healthcare systems or education or maybe workplaces even? So have you experienced any stigma or ableism and discrimination, medical gaslighting or accessibility issues? I know we've touched on this a little bit, but more specifically, how would you say these instances have really impacted your mental health, and kind of where did you go from there?
yeah, I would like to start out. I, as being in college, have had many instances of like microaggressions, I guess. And one of them is being that I have a service dog, and so many people assume, especially my building manager, assumes that they're emotional support when they're completely labeled service dog, patch on the leash, like on the collar. Literally everything says service dog in big bold letters. And it became an issue because she called me one day and she said that I'm gonna get in trouble because I don't have the documentation for my ESA. And I was telling her on the phone every single sentence. I was like, this is a service dog. And she was like, okay, but I don't want you to get in trouble. And I said, okay, with service dogs, you don't need documentation. It was like a whole back and forth battle that she just like was not understanding. And fast forward a couple months, her dog actually attacked my friend's service dog. And it was very much a big problem. And that dog is still suffering with work sometimes. And that she was not punished at all. She was not talked to. We went through the ADA coordinator to talk to her about that, and nothing was changed. I was currently just in a battle with my professor about having to make up an exam. He was claiming that I was waiting 2.5 weeks when it was not 2.5 weeks. It's been barely like 4 days since I was able to take the exam. And so many things. He was like guilt tripping me for using my LOA. He was saying that like it's not fair to the other students. And even my access specialist, when I CC'd her on the email, I was asking her like, hey, is this behavior acceptable? She was just kind of like, I can't really help you with this. So it was kind of upsetting there. Um, and also because I mask everywhere I go. Luckily, I haven't really been fully discriminated against. There are times where like I notice that people like talk to me differently because they think that I don't want to talk to them, or they just kind of give off a different vibe when they talk to me. I remember one time I went to this party and this man was like really mad at me for masking. And he was probably, doing alcohol or whatever, but that was like a very scary moment where I was like, I don't know how to explain that I'm sick and I need to do this. A lot of people take it personally that I protect myself and my health. And so that's like a really hard thing to deal with. And yeah, obviously like finding jobs and stuff like that, it's hard. Like how much am I supposed to disclose? How much am I not supposed to disclose? Luckily, I mean, sort of, I haven't been able to, like I haven't had an interview in a while. And the job that I work at now, it's very accommodating, so that's really great. But yeah, it's really professors that I'm scared about because my grades matter so much, and um, you know, it's a legal document, the letter of accommodation, but sometimes they act like it's not. So, yeah, that's my experience.
I have a service dog as well, and so I've had some interesting experiences, which I found funny because you mentioned the patches. I had a lady, I went into, I think it was a food place or something. She's like your dog's not allowed in here. I go, it's a service dog. She goes, oh, okay. And I'm like, it's not like she's clearly labeled. I mean, I didn't say that, but I was thinking it. And then she came over and started petting my dog, which I was like, what? I just told you it was a service dog. So it's a very confusing time. But I've definitely had some unique experiences there. I'm very grateful that I've not had any huge issues in terms of workplace. I was in college when I found a group called Forward Doc, which is filmmakers with disabilities. And I actually found an internship through that group, and I got to be a grant writing intern with that company. It's a film production company called Space Dream Productions. And after my internship, about 6 months later, I got a text and they were like, hey, are you available to be a temp? We had someone with a family emergency. And I was like, sure. So then I temped with them. And then after I graduated, I got another text and it was like, hey, have you found a job yet? And I was like, no. And they're like, do you want to be my assistant? And I was like, okay. So I've been working full time remote for them. And it's been a truly awesome experience because my boss is someone who is disabled as well and understands. And, so that's just, it's been a wonderful experience. So to share, there is hope as well, and it's not all bad. But I've definitely had, especially in college, there were some points where it was very frustrating. And I was told, even I had the accommodations office tell me, you have to go through us. You can't advocate on your own, which was very, it felt very oppressive, and I was frustrated by that. Different college than I graduated from. It wasn't SCAD, to be clear for anyone watching. But the most frustrating experience that I've ever had was a medical-based experience pre-diagnosis. At that point, I was going to a sleep doctor because I was so fatigued that I was napping like every single day. I needed to take a nap, and I knew it wasn't normal, but I didn't like I couldn't not nap because otherwise my battery was just done. It was dead. And so when I went to the sleep doctor, he took one look at me and was like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're a teenager, just stop sleeping, or like sleep normal. Or and then to top it all off, he also told me some negative things about my other condition. I have trichotillomania, which is BFRB, body focused repetitive behavior, which is a hair pulling disorder. And so I told him about that because they, asked, what are your diagnoses? So I told him I have trick, and he's like, well, why don't you just stop pulling out your hair? And I'm like, don't you think, like, if anyone who had this condition had ever thought about that, like, at least once? So
If
that did not
only.
start it off good. But then we went to this of, like, there's nothing wrong with you phase. And so that was the only time I've ever walked out of an appointment before they were done. I said, I'm done. I got up and I walked out because I was absolutely, it was not an okay treatment in any way, shape, or form. So that was probably one of my worst experiences.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Um, for me, I, I'm realizing that my PCP, my primary care physician, oftentimes disagrees with my neurologist, and I'm like, but that's not up to you if that's already diagnosed. And so I feel like maybe I should get a new PCP. but um but I'm realizing that they try to often kind of call it something else that my neurologist is like, no, this is definitely an issue. And I don't want to get into specifics, but I feel like I have to, there's certain things that have to be done through the PCP, and so I have to convince them, and that's not my job to convince you of someone else. Like, call each other's offices, please. So anyway, I'm dealing with that right now, and then a lot of internal ableism, to be honest. And I think it's difficult for me to talk about, and I'm only exercising that muscle in recent times. So thank you for the platform again. But it's like I sometimes I don't know if I'm trying to convince myself against my needs or trying to be optimistic. And I'm always trying to find what is the right thing to do for myself. Yeah, that's it's hard sometimes.
I can relate to that. So one of the things that I have found that is very, very difficult for me is airports. And so I've realized that there is a huge, huge benefit for me to get a wheelchair to take me from the gate, or, I don't need help boarding the plane. I just need to get from point A to point B.
Mhm.
And so it can be hard because there's that little bit of internalized ableism of like, I don't, I'm not that bad enough where I don't actually need a wheelchair every day. But in this situation, like, my heart rate has, my most recent trip, it was over 130 for like 3 hours, which is
Mm.
really, 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 really not good. And so it's one of those things where I look back, if I don't use the wheelchair, I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel this really, really bad. But when I do, there's a little bit of a mental hurdle, and it doesn't help when, like recently, when we called for the wheelchair and we were standing there, and this lady has a wheelchair, but she's standing like 30 feet away talking to this other employee. And we're like, okay. And then after she's done talking, like 5 minutes later, she's like, oh, I didn't realize this was for you. And that doesn't help the situation at all. It puts me in a weird situation. And then sometimes, I don't know if anyone who utilizes a wheelchair at the airport has experienced this, but they treat you sometimes like baggage. You are just a thing they're pushing. I've also had people literally on their earbuds having a full blown conversation, which I don't know because I'm not in their earbud. How am I supposed to know you're not talking to me? And so it
Right.
was like 3 answers into their thing where my mom goes, I think he's on the phone. And I was like, oh, thanks for, ignoring me, I guess. So it's been a weird situation that I think the public doesn't help with. So it's very nice when you're able to be in a community when people understand and are able to say, I know exactly what you mean, and I understand when it can be hard to, utilize the tools that we need to use. So I'm always grateful when I get to have these conversations and supports and share like experiences because we need more of that. It's essential.
Yeah, I
Totally.
actually want to add to that. I know we're like close to time or whatever. But I feel you so much with the wheelchair. I have realized I need to do it for the airports, and I have been for my past however many trips. And this is a really big. I completely forgot that this was like the maybe the most biggest discrimination thing that happened. Sort of to me, where I was singing in the wheelchair. I was totally fine, like, but and this is not the biggest part, but this family was like literally this girl's back was basically on the arm of my wheelchair. They were talking right next to me when the entire floor was completely open. And it just kind of I was sitting there, I felt so like an object, as you were saying, where it's like if I was standing right now, there was no way you would be standing this close to me. But that was not the biggest part. It came time where we were supposed to board, and I think the guy was new or something was going on. There was short staff, so they were saying like, "Oh, if you can walk, please walk," and that's all fine, right? So I was able to walk. But he did pre-boarding for people who were not in the wheelchairs first, and that is something that really was detrimental to me because I really need the front seat because it's the closest to the bathroom and it's the closest to get off the plane, and all that stuff. So I really needed that seat. And, he boarded the people who were disabled but did not have a wheelchair first. And I noticed that this husband and wife, I'm pretty sure, they were talking to each other. And the husband kept saying to her, "This is not right. I don't feel right doing this." And she was like, "Just, it's fine. Just calm down. It's fine." So I was like, this is weird, right? And so I got up, and when it was time for us to board after the other people, and I was rushing as fast as I could because this was a really bad day. My heart rate was 180 standing, and I was having really bad like seizure-like symptoms. And so I was trying to walk as fast as possible, like just book it. But this lady was in front of me, the same lady with a husband, and she was walking very slowly and taking up a lot of space. Like I couldn't go around her, is what I'm trying to say. And she turned around and she said, "Now you listen here, miss. Everyone else in this line is disabled. Do you see that man up there? He is blind with that cane. And everyone is getting to the same place at the same time. So you need to take a breath and calm down." And I was already crying my eyes out because I was like, I need to get there. I need to get there. I'm about to pass out. I don't have my mom with me. I don't have anyone with me. I don't know what's going to happen to me if I pass out. I did not have my service dog at this time. And so I just like, I couldn't even respond to her because like even her like voice was going in and out. Like I couldn't fully hear at that point too. And it was just like, the treatment was just very it was very much like she was talking to me as I was a child, and um all these different things. And the husband even said too, before this, he was telling her like, that this is not right, that the wheelchair people are not going first, like we shouldn't be doing this. So it kind of gave it implied to me that they were not disabled and maybe she was trying to like get in place. I don't want to fake spot or anything, but that was like the conversations I was hearing. And luckily this old lady, she was in a wheelchair next to me and she advocated for me. Thank God. I owe it to her. She was telling this lady that we were both in the wheelchair and that she needs a seat and all these different things. So I really appreciate her. It's really your own community that's going to speak up for you. So yes, sorry to drag this on, but I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, I'll add another airport story. This one time I'm going to Vegas and I think I'm in a wheelchair and I think that they were understaffed or something, and the airport representative was pushing two wheelchairs, like trying to go faster. And I asked several times, please, can we just go slower, or take me first and then the other person? And she was not interested in supporting me and helping me. It felt like she just needed to do her job and get me from A to B. Right? And I'm like, but I'm human. I'm not a bag. someone said that, like, we're treated like luggage in the airport, and it really felt like that. And so I she took two of us, and we were crashing into each other. I mean, pretzel legs. It was, and it's metal clashing into my legs, and that did not feel good. I got to where I had to be, and I enjoyed my trip, and it was fine. But those circumstances happen a lot to us, where we're treated like baggage. That was a really good way to put it.
It is a good way to put it. And I'm sorry to hear that you guys have had such similar negative experiences, but I feel like it really touches on how these institutional issues end up affecting the personal issues. And then Sarah, you bringing that to very much the, I don't know, sorry, it might have been you, Monica, but just how your um, self ableism comes. And I think the institutionalized world we live in teaches us a lot about how we should view ourselves. And thankfully, there are people who do stand up for, you within the community. And I'm really glad to hear that, Luna, you had someone there for you. And hopefully we as a group of people can learn to do that for others well, where if we witness situations like this as well. So yeah, thank you. And please don't apologize for going over. The whole point of this is to find a platform where we can have these conversations and you can share these experiences with each other. And so with that, I think we'll have one more question really quickly before we open it up to the audience. And if you could try to do this a little quickly in 1 or 2 sentences, if the public were to know just one thing about your condition, what would you want it to be?
I just want to re-quote what I said earlier. And I would say in that 1 to 2 sentence, uh, receiving or having this condition feels like I have died and I'm viewing the life that I could have had. Yeah.
That you don't have to prove your illness to anybody. I'm still learning that, to advocate yourself, to find a community, because that's like therapy. Um, to focus on what you can do instead of all the things we can't, or figure out how to do them. If you can't move this way, then what other way can you move? How else can you find yourself in your body? And it's just a different path forward. I mean, maybe you can still get to that place you want to go, but maybe at a different route or a different timing. But you know, opportunities are out there for us to reach our dreams too.
I think the thing that I wish that the public knew was just because someone looks like things are fine doesn't mean they are. And I think that can be expanded both in the mental health space as well as the invisible illness disability space. And even if I'm doing a good job of convincing you that I'm okay, that doesn't mean that's a good thing for me. I might be spending a lot of energy doing that. And so, sympathy, understanding, and just, compassion is something that I think that the general public can always expand upon.
Pardon, I was answering advice for the newly diagnosed. I think I misunderstood the question, but I think it's relevant either way.
Oh, absolutely. And who is considered the public? Those who are newly
Sure.
diagnosed are also public.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's all very relevant. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, I think we'll open up questions to anyone who is still here. Thank you for staying with us. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat.
My question for you is, what is the kitty's name?
I was a little worried about that. He tries to steal the show. This is Picho, my lovely little orange child. Believe it or not, he is the smarter of my 2 cats. My black and white one is the stereotypical orange cat, arguably. But yeah, he likes to think that when I sit here, it's time for him to get attention, no matter what I'm doing.
He's a star.
He is, and he very much is. He's deserves all the love.
I actually have a question for you, Sarah. I know you said you have a service dog. What breed are they? And then also, what's their name? if you don't mind answering.
Sure. So Daisy's actually a rescue. So she is a mix, we think, lab pit bull boxer, officially lab mix for like legal purposes, but definitely I get pit bull all the time. Boxer, she has a big barrel chest and she can jump so high, so I'm convinced about that as well. But we did a dog DNA test, and I think it came back saying she was part Papillon, which is this like really tiny dog with giant furry ears, and she looks nothing like that. So we
I would love to connect with you guys to learn more about how you got a service dog. Right now, I'm a pet sitter, and it's my path to traveling because I pet sit around the world. That's what takes me places. So right now, there's no space for a service dog in my life, but I really do want my own, and I would love to figure out how do you how. I have no idea, and so I would love to learn from you both if you'll have me.
oh for
Pick your
sure.
brain. Thank you.
Um, oh,
So cool.
I see a question in the chat. I guess this is going for both of us. How does the service dog help you in daily life? For me personally, well, he's still in training right now. My first service animal, she really helped with medical alert. She was actually spontaneously medically alerting, so she knew something was wrong, and she would alert me in ways that she could figure out how to do. And then I eventually shaped that behavior. I wrote a whole research paper on medical alert dogs. I cannot quote the statistics right off my head right now because it's been a while, but there's a large amount of service dogs that actually start off as spontaneously alerting, and then the trainer or the owner trains that behavior and shapes it. So fun fact for you guys, and I wish I could quote it, but I don't want to do something inaccurate. But anyway, so how my service dog helps me, he's trained in training and cardiac alert. This is, I swab my cheek when I have a really high heart rate, or my sweat glands or whatever, and then I give that species to him to smell, and then he will alert me in the ways that I prefer. And so I've been training him on that. It's taking a little bit of time, but because I do self-train, I forgot to mention this. A lot of service dog handlers, they do self-train because some organizations are up to like $10,000 to $70,000 for a service
Right.
dog. It's really expensive. And obviously, self-training is not for everyone. A lot of people don't know how to train dogs. A lot of people don't have the time, the energy, and especially with this disability, it can be really hard and really frustrating because it's all on me. It's all my responsibility. It's all on me how he acts in public. It's all on me on how he train or how he helps me. So that can be really difficult, but it is so rewarding. It is the most rewarding thing in my life right now. I feel like to have a bond with him, and so he helps with chest pain. Like he can put deep pressure therapy on my chest. I actually did it this morning. It can help with just the pain, the pressure feeling beforehand. It just, I honestly don't know all the details, but it does help me a lot. And dogs are also researched to help reduce blood pressure and heart rate. So that's a plus for everyone. He also is able to help me feel more comfortable eating in public. I don't know where this stems from, but I'm very scared about being in public alone. I'm very scared about eating alone. I'm scared of eating in public anyway. I don't know. But anyways, he helps out a lot with that. So taking him to the dining hall helps with that. Also socializing sometimes can help. I'm pretty anxious when it comes to that. I know this is a little bit more mental illness aspect of it, but having him around can help sometimes when it isn't like a weird interaction. Sometimes it can help. I have my closest friend right now. She's actually the vice president for my affiliate of the Invisible Illness here. And she has a service dog and we hang out all the time. Also like he forces me to be a bit more active. I have to walk him, and yeah, it's really the medical alert, the deep pressure therapy, forward momentum when I'm not doing well. If I get confused, he's really good at helping me go where I need to go. My first service animal, she was actually so good at finding exits in buildings. It only took us like 2 times to go into a building, and she immediately knew where to go. She was great with that, and it's really the emotional thing too. Like, I tried living alone here. I injured my foot. My mom took my dog home, and it was the worst week ever with my chronic illness, with my mental illness. I was paranoid. It was so bad. So just having him around, he does a lot more than I'm able to explain, I guess. But yeah, cardiac alert is the main thing. Sorry for going on a rant.
Cool.
So I originally got Daisy pre-POTS diagnosis. So she was originally starting out as for my trichotillomania. So we trained her to interrupt my pulling. So a lot of times what happens with BFRBs or body focused repetitive behaviors is you're doing the action subconsciously. So I'll go up like this and she's trained to like hold down my hand, or she'll jump in my lap and say, "No, Sarah, don't do that." And then it kind of evolved from there where she's not really been trained as much for POTS specific, but definitely with like low energy days, she's trained to retrieve Gatorades for me or pick things up on the floor. I discovered she can pick off a credit card off like a tile floor, which I don't know how that dog does it, but she can do it. And I was kind of joking one time in a restaurant when it fell on the floor and she picked it up for me. I was like, oh, okay, so that's a thing you can do. That's great. But I also am autistic, which is kind of a whole other side that I didn't get into today, but she helps a lot with sensory things and helps regulate me in that way. Daisy is getting older. I've had her since 2016, so she's getting close to retiring. So I went through a few organizations, but a lot of it was heavy self-training with her. Upcoming, as I'm getting prepared to get a new dog, I will be going through a service dog organization that specializes in autistic service dogs. So I'll be getting a new dog to help with that. But it's really changed my life, especially because I got her when I was a junior in high school and preparing to go to college. I knew that for me, I don't think I would have been nearly as successful in being independent and being able to function as a human being in college without Daisy. So she's really enabled me to have that skill set, and I give her so much credit because she has changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, wait, I'm forgetting what you said specifically. I'm training him on picking up things. He's taking a little longer. I've only had him for like 8 months now, so he's new. I had my first service dog, and she unfortunately passed away last year, during the semester, but she was amazing. And yeah, I forgot to mention that I trained Angelo in, well, actually I didn't train him. This is kind of like spontaneous alert, but I dissociate often, where I'll just like stand up. I don't know if it's like the chronic pain or if it's the mental like task paralysis, but I'll just like, not be there. And he can pick up on it so fast. He like comes over to me, he starts clawing at me. Sometimes it's painful, like if his nails are long, and that helps so much. And I also I'm in the process of possibly getting diagnosed for autism, and I think that's what I was trying to mention earlier, is like I have issues with food and um like socializing sometimes. And then also it's kind of like having a like fidget toy with you in a way, like at home, because like there's so many textures. He's a poodle, so he has the big fluffy head and the very soft ears and the cute little like face. And he likes when I touch his paws. He doesn't mind that, so I love like pressing on them, like lightly, of course. And so he's great, and his tail is like really fluffy, and it actually curves, like it curls. Most poodles, I've never seen a poodle have a curly tail, but his does. And so sometimes I like to like flatten it out. And like it's like a
And then it
sleeper.
whips back.
Yeah, the wrist slap thing. That's exactly how it is. And I would pull him in the screen right now, but he's sleeping, so I don't want to bother him. But yeah,
Can I ask you both a question, please? Who trains you to train your dogs? Because I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, so I actually, luckily I grew up with my mom, who is very loves dogs so much. She knows everything about the breeds. Like she can spot a dog and like immediately know what breed it is. So she's really great with training dogs. She actually, not that she has a disability, but she trained her dog to if she drops the leash, that the dog comes right back to her, and that she trained that in case if she ever had a heart attack or passed out or anything like that. I honestly need to do it for my dog. But yeah, she's great. She knew how to train our poodles and just like regular obedience. And so as a kid, if I got bored, I would just train my dog. I trained my first dog to like, if I gave him a specific hand, he would give me a specific paw. And even if I crossed it over, like he knew which one to give, even though that's like not, it does not matter at all. But it was just some fun thing I did as a kid. And I would train him on healing in the house and all these different things. But really the service animal aspect of that was, I trained myself. I hyper focused on it so much first semester. I was watching all of the YouTube videos. Everything on my TikTok For You page was all about the training aspect of it. And even on Instagram now, I'm doing a lot of that. So like looking at videos and stuff like that. So it's really like it's understanding dog biology, dog emotions, dog psychology. Like you have to understand that to be able to accurately train your dog. And then I've always had trust with my dogs growing up. So like I know how they act, I know how they react. And that's really important. And then yeah, it's really the self-education. So that's why I'm trying to grow my, like I have an Instagram account for my service dog, and it's really more just like progress. But maybe eventually I might like make videos on how to teach your dog how to do certain things, because it really is like a group effort. And then also, sorry to mention, but I was also a part of this service dog organization before I had my service dog. Before I needed a service dog, my university has a like service dog training organization here. And so I did observe people training those dogs, but it wasn't really task-based anyway, so I did learn that online more. But being in that environment did teach me some things, so I will admit for that. But yeah, that's my personal experience. So yeah.
We went through to get Daisy. It was actually a service dog training organization that specifically sought out potential service dogs and rescues, and so that's how I was matched with Daisy. But I didn't stay with that organization too terribly long, just because their training happened in a like a group session inside a gymnasium with like 10 people, and everyone was kind of sporadically around. And gymnasiums, the voices echo, and it was way too overwhelming for me and Daisy to be able to focus. So we switched to working with one-on-one with a trainer, and we would have like periodic sessions where we would meet with them and they would show us what to do. And then once we had the knowledge of what to do, we would do the heavy lifting essentially, because they would say, here's how you can focus on this area. And then we'd go out and we'd do that for however many weeks or whatever, and then go back and focus on something else. I grew up with dogs, but I don't have the extensive training knowledge. So, you know, working with a trainer to like kind of get the advice and to troubleshoot as needed, but then being able to do it on most of the heavy lifting myself, kind of cut back on that cost. It did help that at that time I was still in high school, so I wasn't as like, I had my parents to be able to help me. My mom, again, she did a huge amount of help with like training Daisy and looking after her when I wasn't able to, like during the day when I was in school. And so a lot of support in that way. But we also did utilize YouTube. And that was how we trained her for one of her main tasks, which was the interruptive behavior. We found a video that wasn't specifically for BFRBs, but it was an interruptive task, and it worked great. Daisy picked up on it really quickly, which was a good indication that she was meant for me as well. But you know, this time around we're going with the organization, in part because it does take a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And now that I'm working full time and managing the physical disability side of things that I didn't, you know, I wasn't aware of to know enough about at the first time around with Daisy. All things considered, it makes more sense for me to go with a training organization, but I think self-training is a really fantastic option, especially if you do have that time and you want to dive into it with the research side of things as well.
Thank you guys. I'm a big service dog proponent. My mom's a vet, so it's something I absolutely love. Yeah, thank you guys so much for making it possible. I think your voices are really why we are doing this and make it as valuable as it seems to be from my perspective. Follow us, please. Here is all of our information for Instagram, YouTube, our website, and the QR code should have our link tree for all of this and our newsletter. You can sign up for our email list so you can get information about when we have meetings and the Zoom link weekly or every time we're ready to meet up.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Annika's thank you. All three of you are such captivating speakers, truly. And I learned so much from you. And I think keep voicing, keep talking about your experiences. I think just hearing more and more voices inspires others to do the same. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the community is all about. And so I'm just really honored to be here listening to your experiences. And I want to just say a genuine thank you. It means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to be a part of this. And thank you for everyone for sharing, both guest speakers, audience members, moderators. Really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see where this continues to go because it's been fantastic.
Yes, thank you for having me too. It's been very nice.
Yes, thank you.